set up like you can see it on the floor.
Thank you.
with the little thing.
That's hilarious.
Good evening, members of committee, staff, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your patience as we switched from council to committee under this new process. It has been moved by Councillor Rabiak, second by Councillor King, that the agenda for the October 1st, 2012 regular meeting of Committee of the Whole be adopted. Are there any additions or amendments to the agenda? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. The next item is disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Do members of council have any pecuniary interest? No. Please note that in the minutes. The next is department reports, and the first report is Corporate Services Monthly Report. Do we ask the director, Mr. CAO, under this new format, do we ask the director to give a brief overview, or do we simply entertain questions from council?
Mr. Mayor, the plan is that each director will give a very brief summary, oral summary of their written report, and council then may ask questions if there are any.
Thank you.
I'm the official interface for this start, I guess.
Sit down.
You have to forgive me, this drafted
Mi-
some 1,700 miles from here from last week.
Ms. Pupo, this is committee. It's a bit more relaxed than what we're used to, so
I can
please sit down.
Okay. Basically, the Corporate Services Department is responsible to make sure that there's service levels maintained internally and externally for our customers. So we continually look for those items that require, further review for efficiencies, review to work processes, and for creation solutions to problems that are both known and provisioned. Some of the major components that we're working on right now, just to highlight, as you have the report in front of you, is a taxation assessment. This project has been ongoing for some time and will continue into the future as we work with MPAC to get fair assessments across all of the town's properties and structures. Another major impact across the whole of the town that we are developing a committee for is the financial management system. We're having significant issues with the current system that's in place and are looking to turn over to a new system that will integrate all the departments and all the users can have access to all the information in a timely manner, and it will be a reliable system. Finally, one of the Website Innovation Committee, council is aware of this from the strategic planning session. This committee, however, established for website innovations, soon turned into a communication strategy innovation committee, where it was determined that there's other forms of communication other than a website, and they will be coming to council on November 5th during the POW meeting to do a presentation to council on potential findings that they think that the town can meet the strategic vision of the town through. And finally, there's some policies that we're looking to have turned over to priority and policies in the HR department, and looking for council's direction on developing those policies and exactly what council would like to see in them, particularly Christmas closing policy and other human resource policies on recruitment and so forth. And that's a brief overview of corporate services, and we will entertain any questions.
Thank you very much. Questions? Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a few here after having read through the report. First of all, the taxation assessment issue number 2, it's very near and dear to my heart, of course. It starts out by saying fair tax assessments based on town structures. Now, town structures usually are exempt, so that is, to me, a bit confusing. Now you go on to say that you want, there are inequities between different properties. I'm just wondering, could you elaborate on what you're doing with MPAC? In fact, they should be doing giving us the proper values and that on. Are we doing their job, or just, please elaborate on what the policy and process is between you and, or between our staff and MPAC staff.
We had met with MPAC a few weeks ago and created or discussed with them the issues that we're having with our assessments. In particular, current sales and what the assessed values are, and having two similar sales, for instance, in Pelham, the assessments can be as far off as 80%. So with that, that's a significant issue for us. If houses are selling for the same dollar, they should have similar assessment values. So we brought that to their attention. However, we would have to identify to them the properties that are a potential problem. They don't have resources to investigate all of the town's structures. We have to provide the information to them, and they investigate and follow up and place the correct assessment on it. We also determined through our building permit process that if you look at a structure on MPAC site and a structure that we know has a new pool or an addition, that it has maybe not been picked up by MPAC for some reason. Some of it is because it was done without a permit, or the permit, closed 2 years ago, which should have been picked up by now and hasn't. Those items have all been identified as well in the analysis that we've done, and we are sending that information to MPAC so that they can have that information picked up on the assessment roll.
So in effect, we're being watchdogs to say something's wrong here, fix it up? Okay.
Previously, my understanding was that MPAC had a representative for each municipality, which worked very well with, and right now it's a shared service, so it's very, difficult to get the assessments changed in a timely manner to what we considered would be an equitable and fair assessment on a property. So we want to also communicate with the public on this, that, permits and those things for fair assessment, finished basements and stuff, create equity among all of the residents here, and we don't want some residents subsidizing others in taxation. So that's what this project is on.
Okay. In fact, we're doing a request for reconsideration on properties we feel are wrong. Are we not encroaching on private rights? That's an argument for another day. Okay, if I may.
Well, I'm just going to see if there's anybody else on that taxation assessment piece. I just have a question. So that includes also properties that are assessed too high. It's not always going up, right?
Yes, we're doing the analysis and finding the variances and doing the size.
Thank you. Go ahead, John, then for the
Okay.
councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next issue that I got my attention, the financial management system. How long have we known that this isn't reliable, and is there some way the person that supplies this to us is definitely under some kind of a contract, and in fact it looks like they're not answering our needs? Is there some way that we can impose a financial penalty that you're not giving us the service, so that we're not paying you? I have concerns at this, that we're paying for a service that we're not getting.
Absolutely. I've had several discussions. This system, we've had the upgrade since 2009. Everything was working fine up until this current year. Some of the customizations and the upgrades they do don't match our SQL server. They know we have a SQL server with a requirement of the upgrade. Not all municipalities have it, so every time they do something, it affects our ability to function. We've talked to them. We could get legal involved, which is what I was considering about, doing in the meantime, to see what rights we have to make sure that they support us properly and have a system that is reliable. Currently, if we have an issue, for instance, we had an issue with adding an employee after they did an update, you couldn't add a new employee, a staff member. So they said, it would be 45 days before we get this custom fixed. Well, the new employee was starting next week, so we had to be able to add it, and you're kind of like, you have nothing to hold them against. Their contract states that they have up to 45 days, so it's becoming a bigger issue as we grow and develop into bigger aspects of the module, and we just have to find a way to make sure that whatever system we're using is going to work across the whole town, it's reliable, and we're confident in it for our auditors' purposes as well.
And if I may, we have to make sure that we get service better than 45 days as well. The next one is the
Others to that?
Sorry.
None? Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, councillor.
Wi-Fi in downtown cores. I know you're just starting to investigate the possibilities of there, and there's some hints at what cost could be estimated at. I'm just wondering, is it possible during this precursor to a report or issue coming forward, that we could approach the PBA or chamber or some other groups, for example, because it will be centered to the downtown cores, and perhaps looking at a partnership where something may be available. I'm thinking this is an avenue that we could probably follow, because the benefits are going to be immediately impacting upon the downtown cores, and of course individuals visiting the downtown cores will be getting the advantage as well. But I think that a partnership that certainly we should be looking at, and this is only as a suggestion. But thank you.
Thank you. Others to that? Go ahead, Ms. Pupel.
We did do further investigation. I'm asking that maybe that the Wi-Fi can be brought to priorities and policies. There are several questions the IT coordinator currently has with respect to, limiting users, limiting data usage and so forth. Rough ballpark right now that we had today was up $50,000 mark
Wow.
for the addition of Wi-Fi in downtown cores. The 10,000 was based on an estimate to do Harold Black Park, and that was a temporary measure, so they said to do a permanent measure, you're looking somewhere around $50,000. That's just what he received today for information. It needs to be finalized, obviously, but it all depends on your usage, level of service. You have issues with its usage. Some homeowners might not need to have internet usage anymore. They might need all the data from our Wi-Fi system, limiting the other individuals' ability to use the Wi-Fi. So those are all issues that we need limits and so forth put on.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kersey, did you want to comment on any of that? Your thinking on that? It was your motion that brought it forward?
No, I think this is all good. We get all these questions brought to us, the information brought to
Okay.
us, so that we can make an informed
Mhm.
decision when it comes to moving ahead or
Okay.
not.
So I would suggest that it be either at the P&P meeting or perhaps the next committee of the whole. We may, I don't want to fill up our meetings too much, but we want to make sure we get to the substantive pieces. So one of those two, and perhaps we can talk about that. But you were intending to bring a report in November.
The report was.
But you're looking for-
Report before the end of November, so I thought if we could do policies and priorities on the 15th to get the questions answered that we need, so
Okay.
that we can do the report in a timely manner for council.
Okay, committee, is that okay?
Yeah.
All right, we'll look forward to that.
Good.
Councillor?
Stratford is a good example of where it's successful. The whole municipality in Stratford is under Wi-Fi, and oddly enough, the political representative who deals with the impact duties is the mayor of Stratford, so they're all ties together. I found that out in
Thank you.
Ottawa.
Anything else on the Wi-Fi? So we'll look forward to that. Okay, Councillor, go ahead.
Just one other item, and it's regarding the comments about personnel and the executive assistant. I know that person has done a fantastic job in filling in, especially during the maternity leave and others, but looking at the cost estimates are there. I would like to see, if it's coming forward for us to determine in the budget, I would like to see perhaps a more detailed job description of that, so that we can look at and see if in fact a full-time equivalent is the answer, as opposed to a contract thing, and that certainly would help me to make a decision. And hopefully, if that does come forward during our budget deliberations, we can certainly give that a real good look. So if we can have that to come through, I'd appreciate that.
Okay,
And
that's
that's all the
noted.
questions I have.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. That's noted. Any others on that last item that Councillor Durley raised? No? Anything else on any of the items reported by our treasurer under the corporate services report? A couple of things here. I think the Christmas closing, so that's going to be coming. I think that should come to the next P&P meeting for consideration. And the policy standards, I think, can you describe some of the HR policy standards in terms of your suggestion on timing? When do you suggest that those be dealt with? You're looking for feedback from council on those.
There's several policies in the HR, under the HR umbrella, the recruitment for one, that needs to be made current. A lot of the policies are outdated for the types of communication you can use for recruitment, advertising, and so forth. And we wanted to have these policies brought back and make them living documents. And that discussion under P&P with council on what council wanted to see in some of these policies as well. That would give us the direction to bring them back for approval.
Okay, thank you. So we'll, colleagues will look forward to that at a future P&P meeting, and if the clerk can note that, we'll add it to the agenda for that. That's for those wondering what's P&P and COW and all these things. So P&P is policies and priorities, and COW is committee of the whole. I had a question regarding one of the complaints, Madam Treasurer, that you outlined regarding the water and the most recent water billing. Just last week, two people at the same meeting asked me, what's going on with the town's water? So it indicates in your report that people calling in would get an explanation, and it was looked at and some errors were found. I'm just wondering whether, and your report says several residents, so I'm just wondering if you can elaborate on that, and also if whether you're taking a bit more proactive action on this to try to review the billing, the entire billing, or just waiting for folks to call in?
No, we did determine, we were able to find the root of the problem was through the e-billing only, so it was only affecting e-billing customers. So we took the initiative, some had called in originally before we had the chance, we have all of their email addresses. So we were able to send them an email explaining the circumstance, what their correct water billing was, and if they had anything further that they can contact the town and have more of an explanation. We didn't receive any more calls after the email went out with the individual residents. So we know what caused the problem to happen. So again, it's an issue with the financial management system. We're hoping that that incident doesn't happen again in the future. And what we will do next time is have our IT coordinator test it before it's actually run to make sure that doesn't go again.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything further on our treasurer's report? And there's a couple of direction items there in terms of including things on future committee meetings. So it has been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Durley, that the Committee of the Whole receive agenda item 5.1.1, being the September 2012 Corporate Services Monthly Report for information. Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carried. Thank you very much, Ms. Pupo. We appreciate that update. The next is the Community and Infrastructure Services Monthly Report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me. The report was, we provide a summary of just a general overview. There's a new manager of engineering. That's my old position. That fellow, Harpier, just started back on December the 4th. All managers assisted in the preparation of this report based on what their functions were. So the report's broken down by function. Engineering function describes the various projects that are underway right now, as well as tenders that are being requested. In there we have, I guess, of special interest, the Fenwick Flagpole Structural Assessment. That report should be coming forward very soon from the engineers once the mounting brackets are excavated and inspected. That's the only outstanding component of that project. Community infrastructure function under the roads department identifies a number of vehicles that have been ordered and will be put into service. The sign truck that has been ordered should be arriving this week, I believe, and that will be used to erect the new signs for the speed limit control in the rural areas. Under the wastewater component, we have municipal lead sampling program. That program was completed a couple of weeks ago. That's required under the Safe Drinking Water Act legislation. It identifies the targets homes in the area of a certain age to see if the lead in the system is beyond the maximum acceptable concentration. Maintenance activities are described under that water component under the public infrastructure, which is regular bacteriological sampling, that sort of thing. Hydrant maintenance, they're all required under our quality management program. Parks and recreation, under that component we have the renovations to the arena concession and community center kitchens. I believe that work is complete as of last week. Arena ice, the ice is in at the arena right now. Soccer shelters, they've been ordered and they will likely be installed later on this year. Training was initiated for the aerial lift unit that we're using for tree maintenance in urban subdivisions, and the old Pelham Town Hall. A number of capital improvements identified in the budget are underway. Under the community services component, there's a various number of statistics based on summer camp attendance, comparison between 2011 and 2012, bike camp, the arts and theater camp, and the summer playground program. Also identified as the public swim, as well as the triathlon club, which was a new sport that they tried this year. Summer outdoor facilities use is also described with a comparison between the various ball diamonds between 2011 and 2012. Arena concession snack sales, excuse me, the concession has opened, is being operated by the town. It was temporarily closed during the renovations, but I believe it's back in service now. Constituent concerns and issues arising. Those sort of calls are dealt with under the request for service program that we have in Lotus Notes. So they're all logged in and then dealt with as they come in. So we've identified, given a summary of the types of calls received over the month of September with the numbers received, that sort of thing. There were several meetings, some of a legal nature, some of with respect to development. The end.
Thank you, Mr. Mantle. Questions from council to Mr. Mantle? Councilor Rivyak?
I have just one, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mantle, and this is really for clarification. You included in the report a letter of concern from a resident with regard to a small parking area on Orchard Hill Road. I don't think it's going to be your intent to include all letters of this kind within your report, or maybe it is.
It isn't.
Maybe there was a reason that you needed that there, and I wondered whether you might just clarify.
I believe it was included by the clerk. The clerk included it?
I see.
Yeah, it's on the next, it's the next item on the agenda. And I received the item of correspondence and I forwarded it to the clerk and asked that it be put on this.
I withdraw my question, Mr. Mayor. Okay.
No problem. Thank you. Councilor Gurley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just through you to Mr. Mantle. I was asked by some folks when I see we have a lot of summer job openings. When are these typically advertised for students and the part-time jobs that the town hires students for in the summer? When could they be looking to the newspapers for these ads?
I believe it's January. Is that-
Oh. Oh.
2 weeks, 3 weeks ago for Arena Health.
Okay, so it's January where they will be looking, and that's when the application will be received. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor. Others? I have a few. I apologize. Regarding public infrastructure, Mr. Mantle, I was wondering about some statistics. I note that in the other sections of the report that there are a number of statistics that have been incorporated, and I wonder if there's some additional statistics that you might be able to capture in that section of the report. Cemeteries, I don't know, does that fall under there? Culverts installed, repaired,
We could likely include some of that.
Water
That
hookups.
information, water interruptions, microbiological sampling results, that sort of thing.
it'd be helpful to know, and I think especially, for example, when we receive the information here, that's not a typo, is it? The tree maintenance, 32 calls for tree maintenance?
No, that's correct.
It's huge.
Seems like a big deal.
It far outweighs, all of the other requests for service, so I did have a question about that. How is this issue being dealt with? And but I think it also speaks to statistics to know that is an issue, and so I look forward to you bringing forward other statistics. But regarding the tree maintenance, how are we dealing with that issue? Is that
In the
what the lift
report,
truck is for?
In the report, we identified the lift device that we've had training in the staff road right now, pruning trees. Primarily, it occurs this time of the year. The trees are fully in leaf, and you get some rain, then the branches start hanging down,
Okay,
interfering with traffic.
okay. Let's go back to the beginning of the report here. The neighborhood calming policy. I think you'd said, Mr. Mennel, at the last meeting that policy would be here. It's not here. I hope, can we look forward to that coming to the October 15th?
That's correct. It's in draft form right now.
Okay. Thank you. I know that there's a resident that's quite interested in that particular policy because of his neighborhood, and he's come to council and made a presentation. I have a question regarding the maintenance activities, the minimum maintenance standards. The report speaks about road patrols. Do we also do sidewalk patrols or light patrols?
They do sidewalk patrols. I think it's an annual thing. It's more of a summer type project where they walk through, they identify the sidewalks, and there's been some repairs already done by staff. They have a sidewalk grinder for any heaved sections, and we have a tender that'll be going out for sidewalk maintenance, or it's out right now, which will include the larger repair areas.
Okay. So there are, but not streetlights.
I don't believe so.
We don't look at streetlights. Okay. So we just ask residents to call in. Is that correct? Okay. Thank you. Regarding the community services projects, we have revenues, but we don't have expenses, and we don't have net numbers. Can you provide that in future?
We can.
Thank you. I think that's it, Mr. Mennel. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Any other members? Thank you. Appreciate the report. It's been moved by Councillor Durley, second by Councillor King, that Committee of the Whole receive agenda 5.2.1, being the September 2012 Community Infrastructure Services Report for information. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. That motion is carried again. Thank you very much, Mr. Mennel, and to your team for bringing that report forward. We appreciate the update. And now we have the correspondence item that Councillor Ribbiak was referring to, and it has been moved by Councillor Papp, second by Councillor Kersey, that Committee of the Whole receive agenda item 5.2.2, being correspondence regarding dumping on Orchard Hill Road, and refer the matter to Community Infrastructure Services for investigation and report. Anything further on that, Councillor Ribbiak?
No, that answers my question. I missed it on the agenda, I'm sorry. But no, that answers them.
Okay. Anything further? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carried. Thanks again, Mr. Mennel. The next item is Planning and Development Services. Mr. Larmer.
Thank you. As you know, the Planning and Development Department includes three divisions: planning, building, and bylaw enforcement. The building department, we typically provide reports indicating the activity of the project draft that indicates where we are in terms of estimated value of construction. The town has issued about 195 permits until the end of August. 24 of those are new housing starts. Through the summer months, we had dipped below the average of what we had received in the last 2 years, but of course in August we climbed back up into the middle of the range between 2010 and 2011. As I indicated earlier in the year, we are running out of vacant lots and registered plans of subdivision. We have approximately 75 left right now. They are largely single detached lots. There's a couple of townhouse lots, but we don't have much of a variety. So the recently approved draft plans of subdivision have been appealed to, two of them have been appealed to the Ontario Municipal Board, but once we're in a position to realize those developments, I expect that the greater availability of lots will result in increased building. With respect to bylaw enforcement, as you can see, we're kind of up and down all over the place in terms of the complaints that we received month to month in 2012, although we've remained fairly steady in terms of the complaints that have been resolved. So we've moved to a more positive position in resolving more complaints that have been received on average. With respect to the planning division, this year's been particularly busy in terms of development applications that we've received. There's been more zoning applications, more official plan and subdivision applications. And I expect expect that with the recent approval of the East Pine Hill secondary plan as referenced by both Councilor Beatty and the Minister there, that we will be seeing an influx of applications. We've had a couple of preliminary meetings with developers in the East Pine Hill land, so I expect that those applications will be filed in the coming months. Earlier tonight, you approved the bylaw adopting the master heritage plan. That's been a great piece of work that Councilor Burley and has been involved with, along with the heritage committee members and our own planning staff, Taylor Jazina, put a great deal of work into that and was very instrumental in terms of moving it forward to council's approval. An interesting project that the planning department is working on with community infrastructure services involves Niagara College graduate students, postgraduate students in the GIS certificate program. They are mapping, using GIS and mapping all of the cemetery plots in sections of the Continental Cemetery. We're hoping to create a database. Actually, they have to create a database in order to finish their work. That will be accessible online. City of Niagara Falls recently completed a similar project. They've worked out the bugs that they've experienced in that project and hope to provide us with a great piece of work for with respect to the cultural capital of Canada's funding of 2012 Niagara, we have access to money to facilitate a walk through history of the Continental Cemetery on October 31st. A couple of members of the Heritage Committee and some volunteers from the public will be posing as actors to do a walking tour on October 31st in the cemetery. The details, if they're not already on the website, they should have been uploaded today, but if they are not, they will be up this week, indicating the times, ticket information, and just exactly how that walk through the cemetery will proceed. And that concludes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lormer. Appreciate the report. Do members of council have any questions for Mr. Lormer? Councilor Ribbiak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question with regard to the item in the report planner has called site alteration. And I think that his comment basically acknowledges that the public was invited to review and comment on the proposed, the draft bylaw until today, October 1st. And I think he indicates that a report summarizing public comment and recommending further action will be presented to council in November. Mr. Mayor, a couple of things come to mind. One is that over the past number of weeks, the activity that gave rise to concern with regard to site alteration has continued and perhaps increased in some dimension with regard to its volume and its impact. And second, I think a lot of people who were taking advantage of the opportunity to make comment were kind enough to share their comments and observations with us. I say with us, I certainly received a considerable number of the submissions that were going to be made, and I trust that colleagues around the table here have received the same, and probably an equal number of phone calls and other representations with regard to the way people felt about the site alteration bylaw. My comment, I guess my suggestion, is that in receiving as much representation as we did, we probably have a pretty fair idea of where the broad consensus of opinion within the town is with regard to the site alteration bylaw. And we will probably discuss our own individual impressions. My impression is that there's a pretty broad consensus around the notion that the problem that gave rise to this is a very narrow problem, has to do with the issue of indiscriminate fill being brought into the town, and the town being used in certain parts of it as a landfill, and that there's a fairly broad consensus that this activity ought to be certainly controlled to a far greater degree than it is, perhaps stopped altogether. So my suggestion, Mr. Mayor, and some challenging, our new rules with regard to committee of the whole and our ability to discuss things without benefit of a motion or a seconder. So I put forward a suggestion that we give direction to staff to bring to our next council meeting in 2 weeks a narrow site alteration bylaw, I think a film management bylaw. I know that a number of them exist. Our CEO shared with me one, I think, from the county of Brent that seemed extremely well worded with regard to the issues that we have. And that we take a look at moving forward as expeditiously as possible with a bylaw that controls fill specifically, provides both the process and the standards by which fill might be brought into the town. This will allow us to do a couple of things. I guess the first is that it will allow us to more quickly come to a meaningful position with regard to this problem. I think one is needed. I think quite clearly a great deal of attention has been drawn to this issue, and I think it needs to be brought to a quick resolution. So getting to it quickly allows us to control the situation as it currently exists, but it also allows us then time, if we need it, far beyond just the discussion of the narrow bylaw to deal with all aspects of site alteration if we feel in the end that it's going to be necessary. My concern is that if we deal with the draft bylaw as proposed, there are many elements to it, and it would take a considerable amount of time to finally get to a meaningful position that would have some impact on the concerns that our residents have now. Whereas if we deal quickly with the one element of it that clearly is of issue and around which a fairly broad consensus exists, we would then give ourselves the time to deal with the bigger issue if we needed to. So my suggestion, Mr. Mayor, is that we provide staff with direction then to prepare for us a draft, narrow bylaw with regard to fill for us to consider in our next meeting. I don't know how we proceed from here with regard to that. I leave the procedure up to you, but I put that forward.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. I think it's, first, it's important to hear from colleagues around the table, but I think it's also important to hear from our Director of Planning and Development on things like the timing and issues like that. And I just quickly related to that, in terms of correspondence that we've received, if perhaps, Mr. Lorimer, you can comment on whether there's additional information that you've received alone that maybe council hasn't. So if you can comment on that, on the information that you've received through this process to date, and then also on Councillor Rubiak's suggestion, please.
Thank you. There's been approximately 20 comments that have been received. I would say that the majority of them that are opposed to the site alteration bylaw are generated by us, the farming community, and a number of people that are concerned about the municipality stepping in on their property rights. There are a couple of comments that are in support of the site alteration bylaw, and they are largely people that have been impacted by their neighbors who have done adding fill to their own properties. As I've stated a number of times, I don't think that there's anything right about a site alteration bylaw or wrong about a site alteration bylaw. It's up to council if they want to govern this. Township of West Lincoln is considering the bylaw right now, and they've been considering comments from their lawyers, and I'm intending to get comments from our solicitors as well on the pros and cons of the site alteration bylaw. And I was intending to bring that matter together to council as a whole. So I would prefer to have a little more than 2 weeks to generate that. We're actually only giving you 1 week to generate that.
Okay, thank you. Others on council? Councillor Kersey from Councillor Rubiak.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I think that council has taken a position on this some time ago when we reviewed the first couple of drafts, and we directed staff to bring us forward another draft. We reviewed that and directed staff to publish that and to seek comments, and then to bring forward a comprehensive report in early November. I would like to see us continue on that tact. The net result may be exactly what Councilor Rubiak is putting forward, but I think we need our staff, to give our staff time to properly assess the information that's come forward to them, to seek legal input, and to look at the whole matter in a way that is comprehensive, so that we can make a very informed decision, as opposed to, perhaps, I hate to categorize it as a knee-jerk reaction, but I think that we've gone beyond what Council Rubiak is asking for. That direction should have been given some time ago. I think we, as a council, took a position and recommended the measures that we have taken at this point, and I would like to see us stay the course.
Okay, thank you very much. Others? Councillor Papp?
Well, concurring with sort of Councillor Kersey and also understanding Councillor Ribiak, let me try and simplify this in my own context. Given what you're stating is that it's a site-specific or project-related type of issue with the fill, we can do one of two things, and I'm not suggesting that they be one. One of them is you table the existing draft site alteration bylaw and come back with one that just deals directly or specifically with those issues as you raised. Or the flip side is we carry on the process through the end, which then we make the decision whether this is appropriate for us. And I've mentioned this before to some of us, and I'm, Councillor Durley and I and your mayor were around way back when some of this stuff came up with the berms out. And the bottom line was, can you enforce it? Can you deal with it? And I am interested, Mr. Larmer, through you, Mr. Mayor, in hearing those legal opinions, because putting something in place that we cannot, is first of all not compatible for the best use for the community itself, and let alone for us to be able to carry out what we think is reasonable and fair. I would rather hear those legal implications as well. Now, council always has discretion in saying that, and I mean, if we wanted to deal with just strictly the issues of fill and you have something that's in place, that's fine too. But in the meantime, if we're continuing on the process of the actual bylaw itself, then stop it now, table it, and come back with something more specific. So I'm still trying to figure out how the overall impact this will have on all of our community, and I want to be sure that we put forward the best possible scenario. So and notwithstanding this last stuff that I've seen and heard, it deals with very specific instances in very specific neighborhoods. And I think if that's the case, then we need to deal with it. But at the same token, if we're of the opinion that, you're right, we started a course, Councillor Kersey, we've gone down that course, and we're saying to everybody, we're going to get back to you in November and tell you exactly where our positions are. So I think the time is needed, and maybe there's some sort of, how could I put it, I don't know, staff direction or some sort of thing that comes by and says, well, maybe we should only be dealing with one item. If that could be part of the being strictly fill. And I'm not an expert on this, trust me. So it's sort of a yin and a yang. Like we've started it, do we finish it? And we may decide we don't need a site alteration bylaw. Or do we stop it now and still deal directly with the issue of what you've suggested, Councillor Ribiak? Those are just my 2 cents worth.
Okay, thank you. Others? Councillor Durley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Most of what I wanted to say has already been said, but I think it's imperative that we do it right and not do it over. I think staff has a good handle on it, and I think they have a lot of information, and I trust that information will formulate a very good report that comes through that we can make a decision to say, is it worthwhile, is it not? And I anxiously await that. The time frame has been given to November, and all due respects to the urgency that some folks have out there. Like I said before, I think we should do it right and not do it over. And I'm prepared to wait, and I'm sure that we'll be able to make a great decision based on all the information that was gathered by our staff and will be brought forward to us in the issue statement. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Others? Mr. Lorimer, keeping with Councillor Ribbiak's suggestion and with Councillor Papp's comment, is there a way to identify in that report that is now still currently coming forward in November, is there a way to identify sort of this is the broader issue report that Councillor Kersey has indicated? I think Council's moved on and said, let's take a look at the whole thing. That's what Councillor Durley's saying, not the whole thing, but a broader issue. Is there a way in that report to say, and if you just wanted to look at Phil, this is what the bylaw would look like? Is that a possibility? I think that's what Councillor Ribbiak is wanting to achieve. I don't know how hard or difficult that is, but, or hard or easy that is, but.
It's creating a new bylaw. The bylaw that's in front of council is placing fill, moving fill, creating fill. Whether it's building a berm, digging excavating a pond, it deals with all those things. So it's not a simple matter of just pulling it apart. But we could definitely look at the implication of fill and the bylaw to address that matter specifically.
I know this, up at AMO, there was one of the sessions was talking about that issue, talking about the importation of fill, especially around the GTA, and how it has created a problem for a number of municipalities. They're no longer making islands in Toronto Harbor, they're shipping it out elsewhere. So I know that there's probably a number of communities across the GTA that have that. So that is something that you can, I don't, Councilor Ribbiak, I'm just looking for, we have this proposed bylaw, we're gonna have the feedback from it from the community, and some councillors around the table have said they're looking forward to that report about the feedback and what people are thinking and what changes staff would recommend in the bylaw along with legal. So that's one, but the other is you're saying, can we also look at it specifically? You wanted an accelerated schedule, but you're also saying, can we look at it specifically for the importation, is that, I think that was the word, of fill. Would that assist you in what you're looking for, Councillor?
I think that when we go through the discussion, we are going to conclude, I think, that the issue that we are dealing with is the issue of fill being brought into agricultural properties. And the issue is that there are a number of effects of that which go beyond the boundaries of the properties onto which the fill is brought. I think that ultimately we're going to find that that's the issue that's at the kernel. Certainly that's the issue that brought this forward. And Mr. Mayor, I don't know how helpful it is, but I'm mindful, and maybe others' recollection is different than mine, but I think that the reason that we are talking about a site alteration bylaw in all of its aspects is that when we brought this issue to the table initially, we were advised that the only way of dealing with this thing was through a site alteration bylaw. And we accepted that advice, and of course we proceeded down the path that we were going. And that's advice that we all, I think, could live with very well, because we were all new to the issue and we were all learning about it. I think that in the fullness of time, we've come to learn that, in fact, this issue is dealt with in some places across Ontario more narrowly than with the site alteration bylaw, and therefore, I think some of the legal ground has already been plowed, and a lot of, I think, the staff work may already have been done elsewhere. But what's new about it is that we have come to realize, as a result of exposure to experiences elsewhere, that in fact there is another alternative. I don't mind us at all going through the process of examining a site alteration bylaw, and if in fact in all of its elements we can find uses for parts of it and develop it to meet our needs in across the broad spectrum of subjects that it touches. But the critical element is the one that brought us to the table in the first place, which is the importation of fill, unclassified fill, who knows what's in it, into the community. And that in looking for a solution to that problem, we've ended up talking about a much broader issue. Certainly virtually all of the discussion that I've had and all of the reading that I've done of submissions that people have made there has been a constant refrain, a very frequent refrain of, we're dealing with a whole lot of things that are not a problem, and all that happened because a specific kind of issue has arisen, and we didn't know how to deal with it. And those who have a mind to thinking in that way have suggested that we find a narrow issue like the importation of fill, and we use that as an excuse to develop a bylaw that gives us a whole lot more power than really perhaps we ought to be thinking about, given that we don't have issues in those areas. Those are the kinds of comments that I've received, and I'm sure that you've received those as well. So part of my suggestion is around bringing this discussion to the subject that is actually at the heart of this thing, and a solution that will deal with the issue that we actually have. And I don't know, in my naivete and simplicity, I see the shortest distance between 2 points as a straight line, and I think this is the straight line between the issue and the solution. And that if that's the case, if we can narrow that discussion, it will take less time, cover less territory, be a whole lot less complex, and in the end, I think be a whole lot more acceptable across the town than perhaps a larger site alteration bylaw. So I make that suggestion in that spirit, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Clark?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I echo Councillor Rubiak's comments that, having this being a new experience for us, we've run the course. We have a very specific problem. In my opinion, we should narrow it down, deal with what we have as a problem, make sure that we check with our legal department as far as fair enforcement and how that can be dealt with, and just leave it at that as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, thank you. So I'm hearing two different approaches. One to say that we started a process and then we continue on that process, and there may well be feedback, for instance, that Mr. Larmer's received that all of council hasn't received. And then the second saying that we should narrow it down and specifically deal with that issue alone immediately, as opposed, or sooner rather than later in November. The resolution, I was hoping that we could have sort of a happy medium in the two, that we could still have the comprehensive report, but perhaps staff could point to in that bylaw, or in these are the elements that would only be in a importation of fill bylaw. I think staff indicated that's possible, and they could look at that. So we don't have a seconder for your motion, but your motion is, I know we don't require one.
But I think the procedural bylaw, Mr. Mayor, if I may, suggests that we can by vote give direction or not, and of course whatever the vote is would be the vote of council. But I would like us, by way of a vote, to have given consideration to the notion that there was, or is perhaps, another way of getting more quickly and directly to the heart of the issue that we have in front of us. And whichever way it goes, of course, it's the decision of council, and we'll all support it.
Okay, thank you. So the motion is that maybe you can go back and
Councillor Ribiak has suggested that we have a report come to the October 15th meeting that addresses the importation of fill. And the consensus that this activity should be controlled or stopped altogether.
okay, Councillor, can you you said there's another word there?
My motion is that direction be given to staff to bring us a draft bylaw that deals specifically with fill.
With the importation of fill.
To our next meeting. That I think is.
Okay.
is what my suggestion.
Doesn't need to be seconded, we just vote, is that correct? Okay.
How can a motion come to the floor and not be seconded?
Point of order, Councillor?
Yes.
Can you-
Mr. Mayor, I asked the question, again, excuse my ignorance in these matters, but how can a motion be put on the table and not seconded, and yet be taken to a vote? Is that within
Madam Clerk?
I know we have a slightly altered format, but it seems to me that that breaks from normal practice.
It does, Counselor, thank you. It does break from normal practice. Voting on motions. I think I'm relying first on the, maybe the clerk can help here. First on the minutes that say that a motion may be put forward without a seconder under the committee of the whole. Do you have that?
It was approved in the procedural bylaw, and there is a provision in our parliamentary authority for a less formal way of conducting committee meetings as opposed to the formality of council. And it was brought forward in the procedural bylaw, reviewed and discussed, and it was approved of the procedural bylaw.
Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. I think I raised it.
It was discussed, yes.
Now, in terms of voting, does it need a seconder for voting?
No, the motion was on the floor. It was moved, duly moved.
Okay. Mr. CEO, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, you can only make a motion to provide direction to staff. You can't approve things. You can't approve a bylaw or otherwise, so.
That would be at council.
That's only a council can do that. In this particular context, you would vote, majority vote of council to provide direction for staff to do something and come back.
Thank you. Under page 7 of the procedure bylaw, section 9, subsection 4, the rules and procedures contained in this bylaw shall observe committee of the whole, except that discussion may take place in the absence of a motion. Permission for a member to speak is not required. The number of times a member may speak on a question shall not be limited. There shall be no time limit with respect to speeches by members. Motion to close debate is not permitted. Chair is permitted to participate in debate. No motion is required to be in writing or seconded. Committee of the whole shall only recommend items for approval to a council meeting. And the last item, which the CEO stated, the committee of the whole may, by majority vote, provide direction to staff. Okay? Thank you. It's good to clarify because it is our first committee of the whole meeting, so.
There you go.
So I will, Councilor Dre?
Just a question, Mr. Mayor, through you to Councilor Ribbiak. Is this to preclude that we will not be proceeding with the other aspects that were originally in the draft, or is it that we'll deal with this first and then deal with the other later, as whether we're going to go with it or not?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, my intention is to, in my suggestion, is that we deal with this issue that we have in front of us as expeditiously as possible because it is much more urgent. However, it does not preclude having, in the fullness of time, a discussion of the entire site alteration bylaw. And if we come to it, folding into it the fill management aspect of it, which is an aspect, it's one of the things that we are permitted to include in the site alteration bylaw. So I guess what I'm saying is let's go from the general to the particular, because we're dealing with a particular issue. We can take the time then to deal with the generality of the entire site alteration bylaw, and in its finished form, if we're going to have one, we may want to fold back into it the fill management bylaw. But the benefit of dealing with it is that we can deal with the issue now. My sense is that the full bylaw will take us several months further to deal with. And I'm really of the view that the issue that we have in front of us needs to be dealt with much more expeditiously than that. And we can do it if we deal with the narrow topic.
I have a fear there that if we were to, in hypothetically ban importation of any fill now, and we say that a site alteration bylaw can have changes that are approved and logical, by doing that, we may be looking at the fact that somebody might have to import some fill in order to fulfill that duty. So if we say you can't do it now, and down the road we say that you can hypothetically do this particular alteration, you need to fill where you're going to get it from. If you can't import it, what's going to happen? I have a fear that we may be conflicting, saying you can't do it here, and yet we'll allow it there. But if we disallow it here, they won't be able to get the get the proper material to do it there. That's just my fear in this, in doing it piecemeal.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Clark?
Further to Councillor Durley's comments, my interpretation of this is that it would, for lack of the right word, would be more of a berm or fill permit, let's call it, not banning the material, because there are some uses and applications where soil would have to be imported to sites from outside the municipality or from different areas in the municipality. It's not to stop that. What the thrust behind this is to stop dumping of debris, that's construction debris, that we have no control over. And it's affecting different things, waterways, noise, neighbors. That's what the idea behind it. No different than any other building permit. Okay, and there would be you would apply for your permit, you would have to get provide drawings for the permit, and then there would be inspections for it, and there would be damage deposits. So if the road gets damaged during construction, that the town gets reimbursed, which hasn't happened in the past. It's more meant as that, not a complete outright ban on moving a particle of soil from anywhere into Pelham. It's just to get a grip on what is being done. That is all, not to stop it or to ban it.
So just for clarification,
ahead.
so what we're discussing here is the fact that certain products will not be allowed to come in. And
That would be-
we're trying to make a list of prohibited
Correct.
materials from being imported.
Or uses.
Okay, all right, thank you. That's,
That it be regulated, I guess. Councillor Ribbiak and then Councillor Kersey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that in the reading of the sample bylaw that I saw, exempted from it were a full slate of normal practices in agriculture or in construction and various other things. What was being prohibited was the wholesale importation in large volume of fill, to the point where in essence properties are being turned into landfills for the purpose of being landfills. And I think that that's the issue essentially that we have in North Pelham today. We have just an innumerable number of trucks being brought in at an industrial level onto properties, and it's fill that is obviously not classified. It is clearly from construction sources. It's fill that has been dug out of whatever pits needed to be dug for whatever other purpose there are, roads, buildings, that sort of thing. And I think that there's probably a market for opportunities to dispose of fill in that way, and one of those markets is here in Pelham currently, because we don't have a controlling bylaw. One of the interesting aspects that I saw, and I don't know whether it would have application here in this town, but it might have, I don't know, is that the bylaw would place a ban on residents being able to accept compensation for the delivery of fill onto their properties. So it's that kind of scale of operation that a fill management bylaw would want to address. If someone is looking to bring in a load of topsoil, that's not the sort of thing that the fill management bylaw would be dealing with.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kersey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple of questions for my colleague across the table, for clarity, if you don't mind. Firstly, Councillor Clark alluded to the fact that if fill were coming in, they'd still have to apply for a permit. I would presume that they would have to still provide drawings. I presume they would still have to have engineering to assess the impact of the fill on their property. Is that the case?
I'm not certain at all that all of that is necessary for bringing in a load of topsoil. I just don't see how that works out. You're talking about, if I may, Mr. Mayor, my colleague I think is talking about an enforcement protocol or a controlling protocol, and I think that we can write, or the staff can draft a set of protocols that make sense for this purpose. And I'm not sure that a set of drawings and engineering studies of property and all of that sort of thing is necessary within the context of the discussion that we're having. We're talking about essentially prohibiting large-scale, industrial-sized creation of landfills within the town. And where we have situations like this, I think it's pretty clear. And I don't think we'd be in a position to want to permit that. And so I don't know where drawings come into it.
So would you envision this only being within agricultural land or rural lands?
I would say, Councillor Kersey, that my instinct is, looking at the situation that exists, is that we are seeing medium-sized tracts of farmland being turned into landfills. But I'm mindful of the fact that at least in one location within the urban limits of Fenwick, a residential area was filled to the extent of 10 or 15 feet of depth of landfill deposited there over a period of time. And I know that there was a great deal of interest expressed that that sort of thing should not have been allowed to occur either, and yet it had been. So I think we're really talking about the nature of the use and the nature of the fill as opposed to necessarily the location of the property.
Mr. Mayor, again, please. You also mentioned that the bylaw could incorporate a clause which would forbid owners of property from receiving remuneration for the dumping of fill on their property.
Yes.
Yeah. I presume you received numerous letters, as I have, with respect to property rights. Do you not think that that kind of clause would extend further that argument and create even more turmoil with respect to this? Do you really feel that the proposal that you're putting forward would in fact quiet those sorts of things, which in fact, in my estimation, has been the biggest amount of noise that we've received with respect to the bylaw? The pushback that we have received, Councillor, by and large, if I may, has been with respect to property rights. And the folks out there feeling that by us having a site alteration bylaw in any form, whether you call it a dumping bylaw or whatever you may want to call it, a burn bylaw, what have you, I would argue that it is still going to be seen as an infringement of property rights. Now you want to superimpose a further infringement on their rights, and that is that they can make money at having fill dumped on their property. That's only going to compound the problem. I would argue, Councillor, let's give our staff time to take the information that they've received, to work the bylaw that we have put forward, and we've given careful consideration to get this far. And there are many exemptions, as you yourself have said, where normal farm practices are exempt, where, for the most part, most operations within the community will be exempt. Probably 90% of the changes that people do to their property are exempt. But it does impose certain restrictions and certain controls which we as a community do not have. We cannot respond to our constituents' concerns at this point in a very logical and fair manner. And I think for us to have a knee-jerk reaction to, and I'm not being negative when I categorize it as that, but as a rapid response to a very singular situation, instead of taking and considering carefully the all-encompassing issue, because there are issues beyond berms that happen in subdivisions where there is a drainage plan put in place when a new subdivision is developed, and people move in and they ignore the drainage plan and they build their property up, and it creates problems with their neighbors. So the type of proposal that you're putting forward would not necessarily address those concerns. So I'm asking that my colleagues around the table, that we give staff a chance to assess the information, bring forward a comprehensive report. I don't see why we need to take the time that you're insinuating that we would take 3 or 4 more months. Once we receive that report, we will have the data in front of us to make a reasoned decision. It still will not quiet whatever we decide. It will not quiet that constituency out there that is concerned about property rights.
Okay, I'm going to just We do have a little bit of a relaxed format in committee of the whole. I would ask the counselor, it does get a little, the temperature rises a little when one directly speaks to a colleague around the table. And so I would just ask the councilors to be mindful of that. I'm not saying that everything has to go necessarily through the chair, but I think, you know, the understanding of that is so that it depersonalizes things as opposed to the opposite of that. No, so I'm just asking colleagues around the table to be mindful of that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I hope my colleague understands that I was addressing him with greatest of respect. He and I don't always agree, but we do respect each other.
Okay, and I appreciate that, Councillor, and I have Councillor Ribbiak, Councillor King, Councillor Clark, and maybe others. Go ahead.
Thank you, and I understand that our conversation, our discussion is at the highest level of respect, and
Thank you, councillors.
and no, I don't believe my position is an irrational one or a knee-jerk one. I think we've had now months and months of opportunity to examine factually exactly what's going on here. Let me answer, though, if I may, Councillor Kersey's comment with regard to property rights. Property rights, of course, are something which are held close to the heart of those who have an ideology with respect to this. An ideology is something that I think is useful in describing an ideal world. An ideology says, if there was an ideal world, this is what it would look like, and there would be no laws because there would be perfect understanding of what the needs of everybody else are, and we'd have no problems. And indeed, people would be able to do with their properties whatever it is that they wanted, because they would be applying to it common sense, intelligence, appropriate stewardship, consideration for neighbors, and all the rest of it. Problem is when ideology hits the real world. And in the real world, we in fact do have circumstances that are far less than ideal. We have, of course, poverty, crime, disease, and occasionally we have people who act without necessarily a great deal of common sense or consideration for the neighbors. And when those things occur and people come to us, to the government, and say, you know, we've got to do something about this, then we are left with a need to kind of draw the line between the rights of one against the rights of another. And I think that's all that this discussion is about, is where the line is between the rights of those who own property and those who are affected by the behaviors of those people who own property and feel that they can go beyond a standard with respect to the use of that. I don't think that any decision we make is going to relieve us of the comments, the opinions of those who hold their ideology very deeply and believe that whatever the reality is, we ought to be able to stick with us. I don't believe that for a second, and you know what? It doesn't bother me. And the reason it doesn't bother me is, if I can quote another of our esteemed colleagues, I think we need to do what's right, and not necessarily what's popular. And I think that there is a right position to take here with regard to the nature of this. And I think it will have to do with safeguarding the rights of those whose lives are impacted by the careless or inconsiderate actions of those around them. I say that.
Thank you, Councillor. I just want to remind councillors that we do have a curfew of 10 o'clock. This is a staff report, and we are debating a specific issue of it, and I think certainly the debate of this issue needs to be debated, but maybe not to the full degree that it's being debated here and now, and perhaps we need some more information in order to have that debate. So I would suggest that once we hear from our colleagues that I've identified, maybe we should call the vote and continue with the rest of Mr. Larmour's report. Okay, but that doesn't, councillors can still comment if they want, but I'm just suggesting that to you as chair. Councillor King.
I really only have a comment, and that is to say that this bylaw has probably been one of the most contentious, hottest issues that we have dealt with in our 2-year term so far. But I almost feel as though this bylaw is divided. We have a site alteration bylaw that is all encompassing. And somehow we got off on this tangent in my mind, that fill or berm is a separate entity altogether. I believe that we were receiving a staff report tonight, and I agree with Councillor Kersey that we should allow staff to follow through on the work that they've started and just allow them to finish the job that we asked them to do in the first place, and that's my comment.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And Councillor Clark and Councillor Papp for just a little bit, and then we'll, go ahead, Councillor Clark.
Very short.
Just one bit of clarity to some of Councillor Kersey's comments, and maybe I misunderstood him, but his comments about subdivisions as far as being able to, change their grade. I mean, when a home is built, and I think I mentioned this at one of our earlier meetings too, is that when a new home is built, a proposed lot grading plan has to be provided, showing the drainage and the elevations and slopes of a building lot. And that goes up to a site of, 1 or 2 acres, whatever size it is. And then when the home is complete, a as per built drawing is submitted. And that's all just part of the building process and the control of sites that fall under new subdivisions and newer subdivisions in the town of Pelham right now. So from that perspective, the control is already in place in the residential areas. What I feel that myself I'm speaking of is some control for these rural sites where we're having problems with what could be considered inappropriate fill.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Papp?
Let's complete the process, get all the merits of all the arguments, and particularly through you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Larmer and the CAO. I'm very interested in also the legal implications, and notwithstanding whether it's property rights, the whole impact, enforcement, alignment. Let's complete it, and then, as always, council has the ultimate say, either yay or nay or another direction. That's how it goes.
Gonna call the question, is what I had said.
Well, maybe I can shortcut this. I think we can sense a consensus here, and I would be just as willing to withdraw my suggestion, Mr. Mayor.
Madam Clerk, is that
I
allowed?
have that.
No, is that allowed to?
Well, no, actually, it's owned by the floor now, so,
Oh,
It's owned by the floor.
because
So,
there was no seconder required, it's owned by the assembly.
thank you. So we would have to have a motion to withdraw.
Could be by a motion to withdraw, or you could just vote.
Okay, so call the
for
question.
a short way out.
So there is an option that you could move to withdraw, and then we'd have to vote on that, believe it or not. Or we could just call the question. So let's call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion is defeated. Thank you. Councilor Rybak, or anyone else regarding Mr. Larmer's planning report? Do you have anything further, Councilor Rybak? No?
I do. There was a comment in the report with regard to bylaw enforcement, and I don't know whether we want to discuss that here. Probably not, but perhaps in policies and planning, we can talk about appropriate protocols for the enforcement of bylaws within town. I think that's also becoming an issue of some significance in Pelham.
Thank you. Councilor Papp, do you want to just comment on that?
Ditto. I was just going to, we could talk first, it talks about opportunities, about a clear messaging about the bylaw enforcement. Let's have that discussion, find out what that is. It seems to be obviously a great deal of, obviously, not only discussion, action, and how things are to be enforced. So let's deal with that at that. I agree.
So I have a proposed motion. How's this? That the issue of bylaw enforcement be referred to the October 15th, 2012 Policies and Priorities Committee meeting.
Yep.
And that staff provide information about historic trends of bylaw enforcement, about policies followed, and about the general procedure followed by staff during the enforcement of Municipal Act, Building Code, Fire Code, and other pertinent acts, and other information that will assist committee.
Perfect.
Okay, so you'll move that, Councillor Papa?
I will.
Okay. And I will send that to you, Madam Clerk. I already did, actually.
Vote on it?
Anything further on that motion by Councillor Pap?
Nope.
Gonna call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. That motion is carried, so thank you very much. Others to the report? Councillor Pap, you had did you want to raise any other issues from the report from Mr. Lorimer? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a commercial message. The walkthrough history that was mentioned by Mr. Larmer, some information on that. It will be a walk through the Fawn Hill Cemetery, which is a refreshing walk, and it's we're looking at a walkable community, and certainly nobody will disturb you there. Also, it's intended to uncover cryptic tales, truths of local lore, and there's going to be 2 tours, one at 6 p.m. and one at 8 p.m., fittingly on October 31st, Halloween. The event is free, there's no cost, but we would like, Tara would like pre-registration, so call Tara at the town number 892-2607, extension 321, or email tdrusina@pelham.ca to register. It sounds like a lot of fun, and it certainly could be not only enjoyable and fun, it could be also a bit of a learning experience about the lore of the local community. So commercial message is over. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor, for the commercial message. We appreciate that. Others on that matter? None? Others to Mr. Lorimer's report? I have a question, Mr. Lorimer, and that's regarding the sign bylaw on public property. The report indicates, quote, staff anticipate delivery of a draft bylaw to council in November. I thought it was council's wishes that it would come. Can you just speak to that? It will come? Okay, excellent, thank you. That was under the public property one. And I do have another question. I don't believe I saw it there, Mr. Lorimer, and that is regarding patios. It was an issue, and patios on downtown properties in particular, et cetera. So council, I can't remember the exact direction that council gave Mr. Ottaway, but just looking for some clarity on that in terms of timing. That was an issue that I thought council was to deal with. Can you elaborate, please, Mr. Lorimer?
I wasn't really involved in the progression of the cafe and main.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think that's
Mr. Ottaway.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The clerk and I had been the ones working on the issue, and the staff direction that we received from council was to report back with a policy, perhaps a procedure component. The clerk and I had discussed it briefly. It's not something that we're planning on doing until more than likely the new year, to be put into place over the winter season, so that it would be ready for implementation in the spring when the weather turned nice and was more suitable to these outdoor types of operations.
Okay.
If there's an urgency, then certainly we can amend that timeline, but I believe that's the timeline that we're currently working from.
I guess I appreciate that, and we'll look forward to that. I think it came to mind because of the existing, there's one patio there, and it was to be a test, and I believe that's coming due sometime in October, so look forward to that. Thank you very much for the clarity, and it might be in your CAO's report, and
No, it's
forgive
not.
me for asking it this time. Okay, good. Anything further? Very vigorous discussion. Thank you very much. So it has been moved by Councillor Kersey, seconded by Councillor Papp, that Committee of the Whole receive agenda item 5.3.1, being the September 2012 Planning and Development Services Report for information, and the directions that are in there along with it. So all those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. The next is the Fire Services Report. Chief.
Mayor, just talked a little bit about some of the personnel changes. We've had some promotions due to some retirements. We're changing the way we do our training and how we handle our records management. It's creating a few more positions. Call volume's pretty normal. We haven't anything too major in the town. We're reviewing some of the operating procedures. along the way. Projects, the big one there, the self-contained breathing apparatus. We're moving towards the purchase of that near the end of the year. It's moving quite well. Station 3, we've had some more meetings about that. Those things there. We've added some new firefighters to Station 1 because we were down in our complement. Have been reviewing the regulating bylaw, and we're making a recommendation that it be forwarded to Policies and Priorities Committee. One you might get some questions on, we've identified some properties in the town that we've marked as high risk, and our fire prevention division is handling that. They've had orders issued against them, so that's moving right along. As far as the agreements, grants, contracts, so we sent the RFP out for the SCBA. One on line 2, the Enbridge Safety Council reported that $5,000 that we were awarded from Enbridge. It's actually not real monies. It's credit dollars that we use in purchasing training aids. So they have to come. We don't actually get the money and then spend it. We just indicate what we need, and they send it to us, and it's put a dollar value is put on it. So it's not real monies. And that's about it.
Thank you very much, Chief. Questions from members of council? Councilor Rybak?
Thank you. Just a question with regard to the Richard Seligman report regarding fire hall number 3. I think we're anticipating that to come onto the agenda on the 15th of October. I guess that's a question that I can put either to you, Chief, or to the chair of our subcommittee.
Let's get Mr. Onaway. Mr. Onaway?
The fire chief and I, Mr. Mayor, have met with the consultant. We did receive a draft report that, in our estimation, was not exactly the type of information that we were looking for. We met with the consultant on site. We did a site visit, and we've given some further direction. I'm not anticipating that those revisions will be back and available for the 15th of October. But when they are received back, we will be certainly putting an issue sheet in and providing the report to council for their information and consideration.
Thank you. Councilor?
Just anxious that we have that report in our hands for the budget season coming up, because of course it's going to be the basis for the numbers that we would want to put into the budget for 2013 for the construction of fire hall number 3.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's correct. That's certainly the timeline we're working on. I'm not trying to suggest that it's going to take forever, but it just won't be the October 15th meeting. But our objective is to have something to council for possible deliberation as part of the 13 budget.
Okay. Anything further, Council?
No.
Any others on that particular issue? Okay. Thank you. Others to the fire chief's report? Councilor Durley.
It's not really on the fire chief's report, Mr. Mayor, but it is perhaps another commercial message. Next Tuesday night, I believe there's an event happening at Station 2, an open house in regard to Fire Prevention Week, and if the chief would like to give some information so the public can be aware of this, I think this is a perfect time for it.
Okay, well, it's not the Tuesday evening. Starting next Tuesday is Fire Prevention Week. It's province-wide, Monday being the holiday. So we're starting off Tuesday night. There's going to be an open house at Station 2. They'll have a barbecue going there. They're going to put on some demonstrations. They're going to have a blood pressure clinic there. So if you want your blood pressure checked, you can have that done there. At Station 3 on 16 Road, they're going to have an open house as well at the same time. Starts at 6 o'clock. They're actually going to put on a fire extinguisher demonstration. And they're going to be serving up some food there too. So that'll be good on Tuesday. Wednesday, you're going to see the firefighters hit the ground. They're going to be knocking on doors, asking people for smoke alarm compliance, and answering any basic questions. They're not going out doing inspections. They're just going out to kind of spread the word, have a smoke alarm, and if you have any fire questions, the guys can answer any questions that you might have at that time. So that's Wednesday evening. Thursday, we're going to be at the public library at 1 o'clock in the afternoon with a fire vehicle, and there'll be some activities for kids. You can go to the library and sign up, so we kind of get a better idea how many people will be coming. In the evening, we're going to be at the farmer's market, and there's going to be a raffle and a chance for kids to spray some water. And on Friday, we're going to be back at the library, and that's at the evening. There's going to be fire safe activities. There's going to be fire extinguisher training, actual training, if you have anybody that'd like to come up for that. There's going to be a demonstration put on by our extrication team. It's going to be a scavenger hunt and a few other things. So the whole week is going to be fairly busy, and we encourage everybody to show up and have fun.
Thank you very much, Chief, and thank you, Councillor, for raising it. Anything further?
No, that's it. I just wanted to
That's
make
good
that public. Thank you,
commercial,
Chief.
yeah. It's, looks like lots of activities, Fire Prevention Week. Thank you, Chief, to you and your staff and the firefighters for organizing that. Excellent. Others? Councillor Kersey?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you to the chief. I'm not familiar with the acronym CEMC, Chief, and I wonder if you could comment on that aspect of your report.
Every municipality is required to have a community emergency management coordinator, and traditionally that has been the fire chief that's been appointed that, and then we have basically a whole team of people. Our Darren, our CEO, is on that team. There's finance, planning, there's quite a number of people that are on there. So in the event of something large that the mayor would declare say an emergency or would affect the entire town or a large portion of the town, we'd have to activate an emergency operations center, which would be at Station 1, and there'd be, most of the people in this room would be involved in it, and that would be coordinated by that CEMC.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Others to the Fire Chief's report? Councillor Powell?
Very quickly, thanks, through you, Mr. Mayor. Chief, what does FIT mean? Just as a FIT test?
Oh, the fit testing?
Yeah.
Yes, so when you wear a mask, self-contained breathing apparatus, or a N95
Right.
mask, it's a machine that's done through computer simulation, and you put your mask on and they test you for a seal, and so you can wear it in an environment, you're not put at risk. So a health and safety requirement that we have to do. We've never done it in the past,
I see that.
and we've just kind of initiated that, so.
Quickly, is that an annual requirement of all the?
It's actually, it's a it's every 2 years.
2 years,
Under the
okay.
Occupational Health and Safety Act, but the fire service likes to do it annually
Annually.
just for the conditions we work in, so.
I'm glad you've, you picked up that. That's great. Thanks.
And one other thing I could.
Go ahead, Chief.
Mayor, you had mentioned to me about you received a letter in regards to the failure on the CEMC for we didn't comply. Is that we're
Last
gonna
year.
comply, because we have, since Darren and I have gone away for some training, and we've done some extra training in the last couple of weeks. We're gonna organize that at Station 1, and we will meet those requirements.
Thank you, Chief, and I mentioned to Mr. Ottaway that perhaps some members of council would be interested in that, and I understand that's possibly part of the training. Hopefully also do training on acronyms. Or consider maybe using the long form until we get the hang of it, Chief. Maybe use the long form in future reports until we get the hang of it.
I trust that was a
Chief.
respectful remark.
It
right?
was a respectful remark, Councillor. Thank you very much. I do have, other colleagues? I do have one question that hasn't been covered, Chief, and that is regarding statistics. There aren't many statistics here in this particular report, and I do know that we've been receiving, or had been receiving, every quarter, certain statistics in terms of calls and call volume and those kind of things. Do you anticipate, or will you be bringing those forward every quarter again?
Absolutely. If you'd like, I can do it monthly. I can tell you, if you'd like just the number of calls, I can break it out per station, per type of call, whichever way you'd like, I can do it.
I think we were used to every quarter, Mr. CEO.
Mr. Mayor, it's intention that we'll be providing monthly statistics where applicable from all departments. I certainly will take the blame on that. This is our first crack at it. The feedback from council is important to us, though, indicating what statistics they are looking for, and that guidance is helpful for us to fine tune this. We will be fine tuning and adding and deleting as we go along based on the feedback we get from council to make our reports as dynamic and accurate as we can for your needs.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ottaway, and thank you, Chief. I think one stat that we didn't receive are types of, categorization of statistics we did not receive was that regarding fire prevention. And I would ask that perhaps you look at that as a way to get that to us. I know that we receive something annually or an annual report at one point, and I'd ask you to at least consider how that can be incorporated in the report.
Sure. Okay.
Thank you. Anything further? Appreciate that. And it has been moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Durley, that the Committee of the Whole receive agenda item 5.4.1, being the September 2012 Fire Services Report for information. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. That motion is carried. Thank you. We do have an issue summary report here, and it has been moved by Councillor Kersey, second by Councillor Papp, that Committee of the Whole receive agenda item 5.4.2, being a fire services report pertaining to bylaw 2884, which was passed in 2007, to establish and regulate a fire department, and that the fire chief be directed to update the bylaw to ensure compliance with the Fire Protection and Prevention Act and the Ontario Health and Safety Act, and that the proposed bylaw be presented to the next regular Policy and Priorities Committee meeting. Any discussion on this? Certainly a very comprehensive report here, Chief. Thank you very much. I'm going to call the question on this recommendation. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. That motion is carried. Thank you very much, Chief. We look forward to that. Our next item is administration, and it includes, first, the Clerk's Department monthly report. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As noted in the report, the main focus over the past few months has been the implementation of the call to order electronic agenda system. This Committee of the Whole meeting is, although the second meeting where the software system has been used, the first one where a full implementation has occurred. The Deputy Clerk has been extremely helpful in the development of the COW, or the Committee of the Whole template, and I think that everyone would agree the public interface with direct hyperlinks available to the reports will be embraced by the public. In Pelham, I would just like to point out that staff from the Clerk's Department tries to make ourselves available for commissioning documents from 8:30 to 4:30. Throughout the day, we are available for a small fee for the service, and we do try to make every effort to be available during regular office hours. We are looking into broadening the services available through this department by the issuance of marriage licenses and possibly certifying to officiate civil marriage ceremonies. That's something we will bring to PMP in the future. As noted in the report, we have been researching various policies regarding routine disclosure of documents that are in the custody of the corporation. There are many documents that may be released to the public without the need to sever information such as council and committee minutes and staff reports. However, some corporate records contain information about identifiable individuals and need to be given a different level of scrutiny prior to release. So in order to make this as straightforward and consistent across the corporation as possible, we are researching policies of other municipalities in Ontario with a view to developing the policy best suited for Pelham and in accordance with the legislation. At Council's strategic prioritization session recently held, it was noted that some of the town's bylaws are in need of review and updating, and although this is not news to the Clerk's Department, the past few years we have been pulling the bylaws that should be amended or even some repealed as we become aware of them. We have completed a significant project to scan all of the bylaws into an interactive searchable system for the town staff. And that has been a first step to better track the myriad of bylaws that have been enacted since the town of Pelham was established in 1970. Now I think we're up to 3,300. The project is paramount both in terms of importance and scope of the project to complete. We look forward to working together to facilitate a smooth transition with the new procedural bylaw and the committee structure and the implementation of the new electronic agenda system. And I would be pleased to answer any questions the committee might have.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Do members of the committee have any questions? Very comprehensive report. I have a question and a comment, and that question is regarding the software call to order. I know we're using it and we're doing well, I think, this evening, and hopefully it all works from your end for clerking the meeting.
So far, so good.
Knock on wood. Is it anticipated that other committees of council, committee of adjustment, et cetera, will be using this?
We will make that available to members of staff that clerk those various meetings, and yes, we would like to incorporate it as broadly as possible. We'd like to work out all of the little gremlins that might be in first.
Okay, thank you very much. And then I guess the final is to comment that Local Government Week is coming up. That's following Fire Prevention Week, so that's the week of October 14th to 20th. I hope I'm not cutting you off from commercial, Councillor Gurley. But I do look forward to, with the greatest of respect, obviously. But I do look forward to working together with the clerk's office and going to some of the local schools, grade 5 classes and their civics classes, talking about local government, and also the grade 10 class. And council will recall that in the last number of years, we've also had an election at E.L. Crosley for the mayor for a day. So we look forward to that happening again, and I thank the clerk's office for your assistance on that. Anything on that, Councillor Durley? Go ahead.
Not on that, Mr. Mayor, but thank you for the commercial. I do have an announcement, and I think a very important one, and it's under number 8 in the report from the clerk, that the clerk is continuing her vast learning experiences and professional development, taking a course focusing on bylaws and risk management, and also our new deputy clerk is continuing to be educated and become more fully qualified to deal with things. And I think this is very important and shows the dedication of not only our staff in the clerk's department, but I think our staff overall. They're always eager to learn more and be able to serve us better, and I think it's important to bring this to the public, to know that our folks are really working hard to make sure that their needs are taken care of. So I just wanted to get that to the forefront. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Durley, and I'm sure all of council agrees with you as well, and we thank the clerk and the deputy clerk and all staff for the training that they take to be as professional as possible. I'm going to call the question on the motion. It's been moved by Councillor Durley, seconded by Councillor King. The Committee of the Whole receive agenda item 5.5.1, being the September 2012 Clerk's Department Report for information. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. The next item is the report from the Chief Administrative Officer, Mr. Ottaway.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I see that we've got 35 minutes, so I'll do my best to take use of that time. Kidding, of course. Just on my report, a lot of the items that you'll notice, that council has noticed that I've indicated have been covered off by staff already. I think just as a departmental overview, as far as the organization as a whole is concerned, certainly the new procedures bylaw has had a major impact on the organizational flow, both from staff and administration, but also from council. And we're very thrilled to be on this new system. I hope that council has found the first round of, first taste of monthly reports helpful. And we're certainly open and receptive to issues or changes or feedback from councillors about information that they would like to receive. Combined with the procedures on the council level, we've also looked at prioritizing the strategic plan. Obviously, that work is completed. And then we move into more of the administrative and organizational projects. And two things are standing out with me. One, the staff has spent 3 days training in the month of September with an individual by the name of Dr. Min Bassiter, who is a professor at Master University and has the Applied Creativity Institute. He has worked with companies, Fortune 500 companies, literally from all over the world. And he came in and did an extensive 3-day training with managers in order to provide us some innovative and creative thinking skills as part of the overall plan for instituting innovation into the organization. I'm pleased to announce that we will be continuing on with that training at the end of October. We will be then going to the process of training ourselves as facilitators, so that not only do we know the techniques that are used, we also can teach others how to use them. And it's the intention that in the next coming months that we will have the skills and the training implemented across the entire organization so that we're all using the same techniques and applying the same level of expertise to decision-making and by, in turn, making recommendations. I should also note that a few members of the council attended that as well, and I'm sure that there will be more to come on the council level with regards to that training. The other major issue that is taking place is review of the town's organizational structure. There is a typo in this report. It's not the COW meeting, but it more than likely will be the September regular council meeting. I have spent time, or sorry, the October regular council meeting. And I have spent considerable time in September going over the organization, the organizational structure. We'll be making a number of changes, but of course we'll be presenting those to council for your information and input. The fire chief did mention emergency management training. It's something that's certainly on the radar. We are currently looking for a course that could be delivered to councillors. Council's role in the event of emergency is much different than that of staff. And it's something that the chief and I will be working on both on the administrative level, but also to provide hopefully some training for councillors. Currently working on the cultural master plan. I know that there's another round of community consultations coming up. I encourage any members of the public that would like to get involved to certainly do so. And I have started discussions with members of the community and the PBA with regards to Christmas in Pelham, and we'll be coming back with an issue sheet regarding that matter to council as you have asked. I have also met with the new economic development officer for the region. Thrilled with her expertise and the conversations that we've had about economic development, and we'll be working on a project jointly with her with regards to business retention and expansion within the community. And that's something that I'm looking forward to bringing back to council, again with a formal issue sheet attached to it. As far as constituency concerns arising, it has been noted, and I'm pleased that administration will be receiving some feedback as part of the Policies and Priorities Committee that will hopefully give us some guidance with regards to what bylaws are priority as decided by council, and certainly will be pleased to receive that. List of my meetings for the month, and that's the end of my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Questions for the CAO? Councillor Kersey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, basically just a comment with respect to economic development. I noted that the region had agreed to work with the town and the Chamber of Commerce. I'd also like to suggest that perhaps as you move forward on that initiative that the PBA be given place at the table. I think they represent a significant number of businesses in our community and could bring some expertise to that discussion. I'd also like to suggest that perhaps once the new Pelham Promotional Committee is properly constituted, that they would also have a seat at that discussion table. I think basically that's, I'd just like to give an ad as well. The Cultural Master Plan meeting, which the CAO alluded to, public input meeting tomorrow evening at the Old Town Hall, begins at 7 o'clock. Our consultants will be there, and we're looking forward to input from the public.
Thank you very much for the commercial and any suggestions to the CAO on economic development. Anybody further on any of those items or other items in the CAO's report? Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. CAO, for your report, and you did indicate there is some overlap there, so thank you for that. It has been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Durley. Committee of the Whole, agenda item 5.5.2 being the September 2012 Chief Administrative Officer's report be received for information. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. That motion is carried. The next item is unfinished business. This may have been dealt with earlier. Verbal update on Hay Street speed control. Mr. Mantle, anything to add?
As I said, it'll be next meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. New business? Next meeting and adjournment. So our next meeting will be So it's been moved by Councilor Ribbiak, second by Councilor King, that this regular meeting of Committee of the Whole be adjourned until the next regular meeting, being the Policy and Priorities Committee scheduled for Monday, October 15th, 2012, unless sooner called by the mayor. I'd like to, before I call the vote, I do want to say, echo the comments of the CAO and thank the CAO and all staff for developing these reports and providing additional information to council. Appreciate my colleagues around the table as we are working our way through these new procedures. Sometimes there's a few hiccups and hopefully no gremlins on the computer system, but certainly a special appreciation to staff for putting together the reports. It's a little bit different than what we're used to. It's more broad-based and covering much more of the activities of our staff. It gives certainly an indication to the community, to ourselves here on council as well, the number of issues and items that staff are involved in. In the past, those items were coming to us on a case-by-case, issue-by-issue basis. Now, with this new Committee of the Whole process, they're coming to us in a more holistic way, hence the name. But I do want to express thanks to staff on behalf of council, and we look forward to future reports and future meetings. So I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
We can just shut this thing, right? We're not doing anything.
Mine locked me out.
You guys
I don't know what I did.
Oh, your conch out?
No, I didn't conk out, it just went along, moving it up and down,
Yeah?
and then I must have hit something at the top, and I lost it, and then I couldn't get it back.
Couldn't get